Graduated from Rowan University in the spring of 2022 with a sports communication and media degree. I got to actually call minor league baseball and G League basketball games while I was in school. And then I graduated, and as soon as I graduated, I went to NFL Films in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And as much as I loved that experience, I miss putting on the headsets. I decided, you know what, talk is cheap. I have a laptop that's in my house, and so 21 months later, here we are, still on YouTube, calling games and building an incredible, loving community on here with the people that I call my Philly freaks with a capital P and a capital H. We go live for every single Phillies, Sixers, and Eagles game, and we do it like old school radio play-by-play style. I'm Jason Joseph, and this is Play-by-Play with JJ.
Showed swung on, barreled out to right field. Bye-bye baseball.
That baby is long gone. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome on in. My name is Jason Joseph. This is Play-by-Play with JJ. Hopefully, y'all are doing well and having yourselves a very fantastic day. I'm with my boy JC, and we're gonna hit things up, and we're gonna talk about the Sixers and get into some of these Philly sports things first and foremost. But this is my boy JC, and I can't wait to dive in with him. What's up, JC? How you doing, man? What's up?
JJ, I'm so excited to be on the pod, bro. Hold on, let me just flex the Iverson jersey. Look at this limited edition.
That's
item.
so sick.
Look at the graphics on this, bro. They on the like it has the cornrows. Like someone literally like designed the cornrows on this. It was I bought this like in 2021. It was a limited edition item from Mitchell and Ness. Had to capitalize. This is by far the most fire jersey I own. So
I really like it.
And then I got Joel hanging up. So
I'm wearing Joel. Wearing the Joel, baby.
Sweet.
Wearing the Joel.
We're dripped out.
Oh, so great. Yeah. Look, I want to get into the Sixers with you, and I want to talk about this upcoming season. But I think first and foremost, man, you know, I do sort of want to talk just a little bit about the Birds. And before I get into that, you know, we could go from, I think it was a couple of days. It's been like, 9 days or so since the Phillies have been eliminated. How are we feeling about that?
I'm upset. I think you're taking it a little worse than I am. But because I did kind of expect them to collapse because it just seems to happen every postseason. They just look dominant towards the end of the regular season. You know, and usually in the first round, we steamroll. We couldn't even get out of the first round this time. And to lose to a team like the Mets, who are just full of scumbags and a much less talented roster, embarrassing. The team should be ashamed of themselves. And I think you've told me that there needs to be a little bit of a not a rebuild, but a retool, you would say.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not happy about them bringing the whole entire coaching staff back. I've said it a lot of times on here. And I think that they made the decision a little bit too soon, but that's just me. I don't know where they go from here. I think that they got to get rid of some players, but I think that the only two players in the offense that are untouchable right now are Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. That's it. I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from Castellanos, even though Castellanos had a really, really nice series and was the best hitter in that series. You know, they can try to replace his contract. But
what about Trey? Do you think they can move on from his contract?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Who's going to really want to take $300 million for 11 years? I don't know. That's a very tough one for sure. But I wouldn't be opposed if they tried to put Trey elsewhere, like maybe at second base or try him out in the outfield. Of course, he'd have to be up for it, but they're going to have to get really creative. I'm running back the pitching staff, and I'm running back the bullpen. I don't know why the bullpen just got so cold when it did. I did not see that coming. That was really unexpected. But I want Hoffman back. I want Strahm back. I'm willing to give that a run. But you know, getting rid of JT's contract, that's going to be really tough. I don't know if they're going to move on from JT or not, but they have a lot of decisions, and I'm tired of just being a relevant team. You know, I want more than that. And it seems like that with the way things were going at that last press conference with Dombrowski and Rob Thompson, that they're just fine with being playoff teams. And that's not good enough for me. So that's where I stand about them. Yeah, their season's done. Bye-bye to them. And I'm ready for what the fall sports are. And so I think that that's a perfect segue into these birds because they played the Giants on Sunday. I was very underwhelmed with how they played against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. Last week, I was there with you. I watched the whole game. You know, we were chanting "Fly, Eagles, fly" after the first touchdown was thrown to A.J. Brown. But, yeah, I felt very underwhelmed after that win. The whole Nick Sirianni thing, I think that the media was taking it a little bit out of proportion, but I also understand to an extent that, again, immaturity. We talk about Alec Bowman, just the immaturity that he had on the baseball field during games 3 and 4. Honestly, Nick Sirianni and the immaturity, it has to stop, and I can't deny that.
I don't necessarily disagree. You can't be talking shit to your fans when you only beat the worst team in the NFL by 4. The way it was described on a Reddit post with someone I guess the fan he interacted, it was less talking shit and more like I told you so. It was more so this fan was telling him, run the ball, Nick, run the ball, Nick. You have Saquon Barkley is getting 5 yards on first down. You got to give it to him again. And Sirianni is like, I got you. Just wait, hold on, let me do my thing. And then at the end of the game, he's like, I told you so. Just listen to me. Like, I got this. I think that's more what it was. Still can't be doing that. I do, from a different perspective, though, I do appreciate the passion in that it is Philly, though. It is talking smack, getting in your face, being the aggressor. That's Philly. I do appreciate that a little bit, but I understand the immaturity aspect. And there was definitely a conversation between him and Lowry that you have to apologize to the media because he ended up doing it the next day. So, I mean, listen, if they lose to the Giants, he's getting fired on Monday. So the Giants are arguably worse than the Browns. And no, they're not worse, but they are not a good team. And
His neighbor's going to play? His neighbor's playing?
Neighbors is practicing. So that'll be an interesting matchup. We will get to that, who I think should be guarding Neighbors. But as far as this Giants games goes, and I want to talk a little bit about the Browns game as well, as far as previewing the Giants game, the biggest thing that stands out to me, the Giants D-line is scary. Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is top 5 in sacks right now. Brian Burns is an animal. Their secondary isn't great, but their D-line is ferocious. And especially with Mailata out, this is a huge test for the offensive line. And so I am a little concerned in that area. I think they absolutely are going to pound the rock with Saquon. This is Saquon legacy game, Saquon revenge game. I think there's a possibility he could go for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, just because of how pissed he is about how they handled this situation. So that's what I think. That's what the key preview is for the game on Sunday. As far as the Browns game goes, I think this is the best the offense has looked since week 1, which you expect with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm sorry, I don't care who your quarterback is. When you are missing a top 5 receiver and a top 15 receiver who are both elitely skilled route runners, and A.J. Brown is one of the best deep threats in the league, of course your offense is going to suffer. Of course your quarterback is going to play well. I think Mahomes and Josh Allen, I think, are the only 2 quarterbacks that can overcome something like that, having your wide receiver 1 be Jahan Dotson, who has been a complete bust so far with the Eagles. But I think Jalen is getting a lot of criticism, and I understand the turnovers were a problem. Last week against the Browns was by far his best game. Every throw was those dimes to A.J. Brown were absolute lasers, absolute missiles. Put it right in the breadbasket. I mean, Jalen's got a nice arm, and I think you got to get Jalen on the run and maybe utilize a little play action more because they're 4th in success rate in play action, but I think they're like 29th in usage. So I think you've got to get Jalen throwing on the run. I think Jalen has turned many sacks into first down runs with his legs. He looks more like the runner we saw in 2022 than the runner we saw with his legs banged up last year. He ranks 10th against the blitz with 33 of 51, 410 yards, 4 TDs and 1 pick, as opposed to 115 out of 190 for 6 TDs and 8 picks last year. And that's what you want to see. You wanted to see him improve against the blitz, and he's been very successful against the blitz. So I'm not going to make a fuss against the turnovers because I think in the next month he's really going to turn it on, because our schedule from this point on, the next 5 weeks are pretty easy. This week, Giants, then Jaguars, then Bengals. I forget who's after the Bengals, but not a strong team after that. And then the Cowboys, whose defense is piss porous. So I think this next month is going to be a really important test for him. And I think with our weapons back, I do think he improves. I do. I mean, losing Goddard is a concern because Goddard has been an animal this year. He's probably been a top 3 tight end in the league this year. But A.J. Brown is elite, man. I was calling him top 5 receiver before the season. He might be top 3. I mean, he's that good. I mean, he might be the best receiver the Eagles have ever had in their entire franchise, maybe even better than Terrell Owens. I'm ready to say that. And Devontae Smith is superbly skilled, one of the best route runners in the league. I don't see our offense falling off. Obviously, the defense is the concern. But I think as far as the defense goes, I thought Sunday was the best game plan Vic Fangio has had, even better than the Saints game. They blitzed more than any other game this year. They were getting pressure on the QB. They got 5 sacks. The cornerbacks were pressing and playing up as opposed to dropping back and giving them easy looks over the middle. It forced Deshaun Watson to move around and throw it further downfield. But the D-line, I think, is slowly starting to improve. Josh Sweat has a higher pressure rate than TJ Watt or Montez Sweat at 12%. He has a combined 14 pressures last 4 games. Thought Bryce Huff was his best game by far on Sunday, which he has been a complete bum. But Bryce Huff, he had like 3 or 4 really nice pressures. Apparently, they changed his stance or something like that. Jalen Carter, obviously an animal, the best player on our defense by far, blows up the O-line every play. And I think as far as the cornerbacks, man, Cooper DeJean should have been the nickel cornerback from day one. Avonte Maddox doesn't got it anymore. He absolutely would have been a top 17 pick if he didn't tear his ACL at Iowa. He was locked down on Sunday, recorded a sack. And Quinyon, he needs to be cornerback number 1. He needs to be on Neighbors on Sunday.
Yes.
8 forced incompletions, which is 3rd in the NFL. 3rd. Completely locked down Mike Evans when we played him in Tampa when they switched Slay off to Quinyon.
Clamps.
Yeah, I fear that Slay might be cooked, and I love Slay. I appreciate everything that he's done for us. 2 years ago, he was phenomenal, but I just don't love him for fraternizing with the enemy by appearing on Micah Parsons' podcast and laughing about how C.J. Gardner-Johnson's been cooked. I mean, you're the captain of this team, man. You can't be doing that.
No.
So I think the defense, I'm still highly concerned, but last week was major improvement, and there's still many strides to go, but against the Giants, this is not – I will be very concerned if the defense is poor on Sunday.
I wish I could sip the Kool-Aid just like you. I wish I could be there. I'm not there. I'm definitely not.
I will be pulling up. So.
No, I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling good at all about this Eagles team at all whatsoever. I agree with you about getting AJ back. Of course, that's really, really big. Be interested to see what happens when Goddard comes back for sure. I think Saquon is going to have a big game on Sunday, but you are right about this Giants defense, man. This Giants defensive line is really, really good. You talked about Dexter Lawrence, and it's funny because they're missing Kayvon Thibodeau. That's a really big loss for them. Oh yeah, for sure. But I saw that Dexter Lawrence is actually questionable. I don't know why, but I did see that. I think he'll play. And Nunez Roches is also really, really good as well. Got to be able to watch out for him. But
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this defense moving forward. That is the biggest concern to me. Obviously, just the fact that this team has just been really inconsistent, has just been really frustrating. I still and I know that you and I disagree about this. I still would have wanted AJ Brown to run a slant at the very, very end. You didn't have to go to the deep ball there. I don't know why they did it. I thought that was a really bad play call, and that was unnecessary. Phenomenal catch by A.J. Brown because, yeah, he's like one of the top receivers, and that's just like part of his skill set. But I thought that was a really big gamble, especially because of how inconsistent they've been with their play calling. You know, if Saquon Barkley can't catch like a short pass on a third down and they end up losing that game, why are we going to the deep ball there? That's just the way that I look at it.
That's fair. I trust Kellen Moore, but I would like them to throw it to the middle of the field a lot more. I'm still looking at these route trees, and it's still very much not exactly similar to Brian Johnson, but still, more to the sideline. And the plays that they've thrown it to the middle were successful. That Devontae Smith touchdown was a mesh concept with someone setting a screen and him going across the middle, and he ran it in for a touchdown. So
yes, he did.
They've got to utilize that more. But I think Saquon will go off, and I mean, this has to be a win. This has to be a win in order to get into the playoffs. So
absolutely.
I personally think if they do not go by the end of the next 5 weeks, if they're not at least 7-4 by the end of the next 5 weeks, it's a problem. And Sirianni definitely should be fired at that point. Definitely should be fired on Monday if they lose to the Giants. But I mean, if they decide to keep him longer, then they go worse than finish with a worse record than 7-4 in this next 5-game stretch. Because our schedule from this point out is very easy. I think the toughest games we have on our schedule remaining: Bengals, Ravens, Cowboys in their house, but the Cowboys defense is awful. Bengals defense is awful. These are games that we should be in and should win.
Absolutely. And by the way, last comment before we get into the Sixers, please go get me Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. Please, Howie. Please. I
want it more than anything, but
yeah.
And I don't care if it costs 4 first-round picks. You do it. Your Super Bowl window is now, but
you have to.
I don't think they're going to shop those players.
Yes, and also, by the way, Jets, if you could do us a solid and just trade Hassan Reddick to Detroit,
get us that second-round pick.
Yeah,
get us that 2026 second-round pick. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Speaking of let's do it, we should also let's try to go after a championship this year, because I think that's the goal for this basketball team. So first and foremost, the season hasn't even started yet, man, and all of a sudden we're getting banged up. Jared McCain gets hurt yesterday and has to go to the hospital. Paul George, the knee contusion. Like, come on. Is this like just so Sixers-esque?
It really is, and I'm pretty devastated. I mean, that McCain fall was bad, but I'm devastated about the Paul George thing, because you and I are going to the opening game Wednesday, and the sole reason I paid what I paid for these tickets is because Paul George is my favorite basketball player of all time besides Joel Embiid, and there's nothing more than I want to see his debut, and very likely he will not play against the team we need him to play, because the Bucks do have, not only do they have Giannis and Dame, but they have Chris Middleton, Gary Trent, they have other players. So they do need him in that game. Would like to start the season 1-0 at home and ring the bell. So, and it's going to be one of the most raucous crowds that the Sixers have ever had, within the last couple of years. So, I hope he's okay. That I hope McCain's okay. But it's obviously not as big of an effect as the Paul George thing, because McCain is not going to get minutes early on in the season. He's looked phenomenal, in the preseason. McCain
Yes.
has such a phenomenal shot. I know you were in the Dalton Connect train, but I think this was the right pick. I think this was the right pick. If they trade him at the deadline, I will be devastated because I think this guy needs to be Maxey's backcourt partner for the next 10 years once Joel retires. And he's a sniper. He can facilitate. He can throw lobs. He can slash. He can drive and finish at the rim. He's got it all. And I think he's going to be a stud. And even on his threes, man, he's very similar to Batum in that no dip shot. Like, he can catch it from anywhere and just snipe that. Like, he doesn't even have to dip, which is very difficult as a shooter. Most shooters have to dip the ball. So I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
And he's an awesome person. So I wish the best for him. So, but reality is he's not going to be playing at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that does not make me feel good whatsoever. Hey, all right, I'll start off with the positives. Last night I saw Tyrese Maxey doing some little alley-oop passes, and I feel like every single year this guy just always tries to find ways to improve. His three-point shooting first year, unbelievable, right? Last year, his ball handling skills, he found a way to improve upon that right before the season started. I really feel like every single year, and also defensively, I thought that defense was something that he did a much better job at as the season went on last year, and he definitely improved on the perimeter, staying on his man, and I was really, really impressed by that. I think people are going to call me crazy, but I think that Tyrese Maxey, it would not shock me if this guy finished in the top 5 of MVP conversations. And the reason why, part of the reason why is because Joel Embiid is probably not going to be playing back-to-backs. Paul George, I don't know if he's going to be playing back-to-backs. And this guy just every single year just continues to take leaps and steps into his game. But do you think I'm crazy for calling Tyrese Maxey right now a top 5 MVP candidate for the 2024-25 NBA season?
I love Tyrese Maxey to death. I think it's far-fetched to say top 5 only because if they're not going to even include Tatum in the top 5, like their thing for Tatum is Tatum as a super team. I think they're going to use our roster against us in a Tyrese Maxey and even a Joel Embiid MVP discussion. That's the only reason is I know how the voters think. And if you have a really good team surrounded by a really good team, it's going to be very hard to win the MVP, especially if you're not the best player on the team. So, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he averages 27 a game this year. I wouldn't be shocked if he shoots 42% from 3. I wouldn't be shocked if his assist numbers go up now that he has even more talented shooters around him. And I think a play that I think will be very crucial this year is Joel's off-ball screening. Every 3 that Curry had in the Olympics, Joel freed him up on an off-ball screen. And Joel can do that for Maxey and PG now because they are elite three-point shooters. Both of them are elite at shooting the 3. And I think that's a play they're going to utilize a lot is off-ball down screens to free up Maxey in the corner at the top of the perimeter. And I think it's another reason that it's great is we have Paul George is an excellent ball handler, and it allows Maxey to play the 2 more, which is his natural position is the 2. I understand he has to be thrust in this point guard role, and he has absolutely made leaps and bounds as a passer after the tutelage of Harden. Absolutely. But it's great that we have a second ball handler, and I think he'll be at the 2 in a lot of lineups, whether it's Lowry at the 1, Reggie Jackson at the 1, Paul George bringing it up the floor. So I'm really excited for what Tyrese does this season. He's just a straight bucket to go into Madison Square Garden, put 46 on the Knicks in a must-win game, in an elimination game. The guy has got some big kahunas, bro. And
He's got balls.
Yeah, he does. And he's just going to go off this season. He absolutely will be an all-star again. And I can't wait to see it. So
I'm very excited to see.
And he's gotten better in the pick and roll. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah. He's what I like to call a triple threat. I think that the only thing that he has to work on, and I've said this for a little bit, is the mid-range.
And I've actually seen that improve in preseason.
I have seen that.
Yeah.
I have seen that too. But if he can do that this year, and if he can do what he did last. I'm telling you, like some of those alley-oop passes, I've never seen them really do those things. Like that can unlock even more out of Tyrese Maxey.
Absolutely.
So if he can continue to do that, like literally the sky's the limit with this guy. I still don't know how we got him. Like it's just unbelievable. So I want to talk about first and foremost the expectations for the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll get into up and down and everything like that. But expectations, if we were to put a number of wins for this team this year, I know that we don't know about the health with Joel and Paul George, who's going to be playing on a night-to-night basis. I understand that. But I'm going to go with 53 wins. 53.
I like that.
53 is a good. Do you think that that's a reach, or do you think that that's plausible?
I would go 50 just because Joel not playing back-to-backs. But usually the teams we're playing on back-to-backs are like Charlotte Hornets, Detroit Pistons level.
Sure.
I think 50 is a reasonable expectation, but I think the expectation should be that they are a top 3 seed in the East. And ultimately, it is a disappointment if they don't make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. That is a disappointing season if they don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yes. The only team that I don't think that they're better than is Boston. I don't know about this Knicks team. The Knicks to me are the one team where I really don't know. That's the only tough one. But I like them over Miami. I like them over Orlando. I like them over Milwaukee.
Indiana.
I like them over everybody else. And Indiana's a weird one because they play with such a fast pace, but it's all dependent on Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. So
yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. But I do think that like the Sixers, like the Phillies, they have championship aspirations. I do. I think if they don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, by the very, very least, it is a failure of a season. Let's talk about the so let's get into these rotations, okay? By the end of the season, I'm sorry. I'm getting way ahead of myself. By Wednesday, the starting lineup, if Paul George is healthy and if Joel is healthy, what should the starting lineup be?
I believe that Maxey will be at the 1.
Okay.
PG at the 2.
At the 2?
Yeah, because I think Oubre is not a shooting guard. He's just not. And I think Paul George is multifaceted, and especially with his ball handling and 3-point ability, can play the 2. And really, positions don't matter in basketball with matchups. Like you're guarding, like Paul George or Caleb Martin is going to be on the opposing team's best player. That's just the reality, no matter what position they are, except when we play like a Denver or a Milwaukee where you've got Giannis or Jokic. But and then Oubre at the 3, Martin at the 4, Joel at the 5. As far as bench, I think at the start of the season, Lowry and Eric Gordon are the first 2 off the bench. Drummond at center, and then I think the forward spot is up for debate between Council and Yabusele, but I think just because Council has been with the team, Council will probably get more minutes to start. So I see this being like a 9-man rotation to start, maybe 10. But I think Council and Yabusele will be real X factors. Nothing looks different in Council's mechanics of his shot, but his shot looks way more consistent. He looks as ripped. Yeah, he looks as ripped and springed as ever. So that's what I think the rotation is. And I think at some point there will be a discussion about, does Reggie Jackson take some of Kyle Lowry's minutes? Because I do think Reggie Jackson, although up there in age, I think he's a talented player and a talented scorer.
He didn't have a good night though last night, and of course, like some players don't have like their best stuff like on some nights, but honestly, that acquisition is starting to. I know that the season hasn't even started, and it's probably not fair, but that acquisition is starting to worry me just a little bit. But I guess that as the season goes on and as the season starts, we'll wait and see how that goes. See, I think that as the season goes on, I think Oubre is going to come off the bench. I do. I think Oubre is going to come off the bench, and what's eventually going to happen is we're going to have Kyle Lowry as the season progresses out there as the starting point guard, and then you're going to have Tyrese Maxey, and then it'll be PG and Caleb Martin, and then Joel Embiid. And I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, considering Lowry's almost 39, that's a very interesting take.
Yes.
But I guess I do see it as that you want more scoring off the bench.
You do.
I mean, I would say if they're going to put anyone on the bench, I would say Caleb Martin is a more talented scorer than Kelly Oubre. But also Caleb Martin is probably, besides Paul George, is probably their best perimeter defender. So you do need him in that starting lineup. So it'll be interesting.
But Oubre was such a good spark plug. He really was.
He was. Yeah, the lineups will be very interesting. But I definitely think Maxey, PG, Oubre, Martin, and Embiid to start at least the first 10 games of the season.
Yeah. You know what my favorite lineup probably would be like as the game goes on? Like I would love a second quarter lineup of Tyrese Maxey, and probably this wouldn't happen. Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain. Okay. Hear me out. Okay. I'm just thinking about this now. Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain. Okay. Paul George, Caleb Martin, and Andre Drummond as like.
I like that lineup a lot.
As like a second quarter lineup. Like Joel Embiid's resting, and it's like, well, Tobias Harris was supposed to do what Paul George can do, and I feel like it looks a lot better. I really like that. All right, player expectations.
Yeah,
okay,
how about
player expectations?
Should we get into PG first?
Hit it off. You're batting lead off for me, man.
All right, I'm about to go on a soliloquy. Paul George.
Right, hold up.
So, Paul George made me fall in love with basketball. I started watching around 2012, 2013, where his rise with the Pacers started. I would wear his Pacers jersey, number 24, every day to middle school, literally every day. And what this guy has had to overcome is just remarkable. Returning from snapping his leg in half, bone showing, to still being one of the most athletic players in the league. Took LeBron teams on the Heat and the Cavs to 7 games. Was third in MVP votes his second year with the Thunder. In 2021, when Bucks won, took the Suns to 6 games, averaging 30 without Kawhi against Booker and CP3. Like, there is no better option, no better third option in the league, and it's not close. The only other name that comes to mind is Bradley Beal, and Paul George is a much better player than Bradley Beal. His handle is just so smooth, was 5th in three-pointers made last year with 243 makes, averaging 22 a game, shooting 47 from the field and 41 behind the arc, 91% from the free throw line. The guy is a straight bucket, straight hooper, can close games in the fourth, and he is still an excellent perimeter defender, really is. Can average 1.5 steals a game, can get blocks from behind. There's no better third option in the league, man. And Paul George is just 20 times the player Tobias Harris is. He just is. I mean, he's a 9-time All-Star. Like, been, like I said, third in MVP votes before. Like, this is one of the best players we've ever had. Like, and probably at this point is better than Harden. So I think he's just going to have an excellent season. Probably will average around similar numbers to last year, 22, 23 a game. But I'm really excited for Paul George on this team, and this is just a dream come true for me. So what say you, JJ?
First of all, I just wanted to give you your flowers because you know what? I needed you to talk that talk, man. I needed you to talk that talk. So I'm happy that you did that. I was paying attention to everything. I just wanted. I didn't know where you went. Floor.
Thank you.
That's all. I needed you to do that. PG, man, I think is going to have a really, really good year. I'm excited. I think that as weird as this sounds, I think that his 3-point shooting numbers have been really, really good. And people don't understand. And it took me a while to understand this too, because I wasn't watching the Clippers. I'm not a Clippers fan. I don't watch them every single day. But when I did start watching them in the playoffs, this guy had to actually become a second option. And at some points, he had to become a first option because James Harden was a deer in the headlights and Kawhi Leonard just could not get it done. So this guy had to become their first scoring option. And I thought that really put him in a position to fail because that's not where he's best utilized. At this point in the NBA, with the way that the market has gone, okay, you had to pay for him. You had to get him. You had to have him come here. My question was, what could Daryl Morey do to get creative with building out the rest of the depth chart? I love the moves. I really do. It took me a little bit of time to understand that they actually got Kelly Oubre back on a bargain of a contract.
I thought he was going to go for much more.
Yeah, me too. And Caleb Martin, the same thing.
Caleb Martin turned down 5 years, 65 from the Heat to do 4 years, 32 with Philly. That's a crazy bag fumble.
That is really unbelievable. But anyhow, I really like PG in this spot. And the only thing that concerns me again is just health. That's all it comes down to. But I really, really like Paul George. And I think that we should have, by the end of the year, we should have, like, when ESPN has those, like, top 25 players, I need to see Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George in that top 25.
And I think they all are still top 25 players.
I do too.
What do you think about, speaking of Caleb Martin, what do you think? I personally, Caleb Martin is the Boston killer. He has torched the Celtics, averaged a career high 10 a game this past year, but really turns it on in the playoffs. Averaged 19 points, 6 boards against Boston in 2023 Eastern Conference Finals, shooting 42 from 3 on 4.5 attempts. Had 27 in Game 7 to bring them to the finals. In 2024, although they were knocked out in the first round, but had no Jimmy, averaged 12 points, but shot 44% from 3 on 5 attempts. So I think the guy can score. I really do. So as a fourth option, he's going to get a lot of good looks. And I think him or PG is going to guard the opposing team's best perimeter player, but most likely him to keep PG's legs fresh. So,
you know what I like about this team overall? They have 3-point snipers.
Yeah,
they really do. Look, his 3-point numbers were a little bit down this year when it came to just his 3-point shooting. He shot 35%. Last year, he shot 35.5%. And then 2021, 2022, he shot 41.5%. But the reason why I think that his 3-point shooting numbers are going to go up is because I think that his attempts are going to go up now too. I think that with the way that this team is constructed, they have guys that can space the floor. How many years in a row did we say, oh man, I wish that we had a team that was like Giannis and the Bucks, where there were just spacers out there, floor snipers? I think we have that now. You know, Paul George can space the floor if he really wants to, at the very least. And that's why I think that even this contract that Paul George has could still be really, really valuable, because even if, like, let's just say he gets older and he can't necessarily create his own shot, he can still catch and shoot. And that's like what makes him really lethal. And so I really like just the way that his value can be utilized. And with Caleb Martin, it's the same exact thing. Caleb Martin can go out there. He can also, sometimes if he wants to, he can sort of get to the rack and he can step up if he has to. He plays really solid defense, and he's a very good floor spacer who can also catch and shoot. And with Jimmy Butler getting injured last year and having to rely on Terry Rozier, again, this guy had to step up a little bit more, and he was put into more spots, and I don't think that was the best for him, and I think he's going to have a better season. I really do.
Yeah, but you do want to see the improvement in the playoffs, and he's shown that, unlike a Tobias Harris, he can step up and improve his numbers every year in the playoffs. And another guy, Eric Gordon, he's still averaging 11 off the bench. He shoots 38% from 3. That guy's got range. I've watched Eric Gordon for a long time. You know, he was a great player with the Rockets. Still at his age. I mean, he's like 36. Still was pretty a solid piece. Was like the number one guy off the bench for the Suns last year. So. Yeah, we've got snipers, and even Oubre, like he's not the greatest 3-point shooter, but he's probably shoots it makes 1 out of every 3. But he's not going to
get hot though.
Yeah, but he's not going to be asked to shoot a lot of threes.
No.
Oubre is a slasher. Oubre is going to be put in a similar position to Aaron Gordon, getting passes from Joel in the dunker spot. That's what I think. I mean, we used to utilize PJ Tucker in the dunker spot. Imagine what Kelly Oubre can do on the dunker spot, because I think he's the most athletic player on this team. So
I like how we got younger. I also like how we have nice, solid veterans, and I think that we have ballers. And speaking of ballers, Ricky Council IV is a baller. He is. I can see the improvements that he's made already in the preseason, and it's not even funny. This guy, give me Ricky Council IV minutes. I've said from when I've watched him in the G League that this guy has what it takes to be a really nice, solid role player in the NBA. And we all know why he didn't play. We all know why he wasn't out there in the playoffs, because money talks, and Tobias Harris had to play because Daryl Morey liked him. And that's just the way that sports go now. Like the bigger contract guys are going to have to try to find ways to play. But Ricky Council IV, my expectations for him this year, and then I'll get to you. My expectations for Ricky Council IV, by the end of the season, I want to see this guy coming off the bench and being a part of the second unit. I do. And I think he can do it. I really do. I think that he can get you some rebounds. I think that he can also, give you a bucket whenever he has to do it. He's also become a better 3-point shooter. But I think overall, if he can get you like 9 to 10 points off the bench and get you some rebounds, I think that's a good thing. I do. What say you?
The shot needs work. I would say he's, in terms of the 3, he's best in the corner.
Yes.
But the guy's a slasher. The guy will attack the rim. He's ferocious at attacking the rim. Yeah. Crazy finisher, can finish through contact, can finish N1s. So I think he will be an X factor for us this year off the bench.
He can box out.
Yes, he can.
He can box out. How many
and
times?
He can get up there to block as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, we really missed that in the Knicks series. Absolutely. So I don't think that there's any excuses this year. I sort of gave Nick Nurse a little bit of some slack last year because I understand that Tobias Harris was there and Paul Reed was there, and they just could not get it done. They could not. But my expectation for him is to come off the bench and be able to provide really solid role player minutes.
Would you like them? Sorry to interrupt, but would you like them to trade for another forward? Because personally, there's 4 targets I have in mind, and some of them are more expensive than others. But dream targets I have for the Sixers at the deadline: 1, Trey Murphy, but I don't think that's obtainable because I think he's going to go for a ridiculous contract next season that we won't be able to afford. But he is a top 10 3-point shooter in the league. Shoots it at a 38% clip, but is on 7 or 8 attempts a game. And he has got range and can defend and can attack the hoop. Herb Jones was first team all defensive team last year. Jones. He only shoots 3 threes a game, but he's shooting that at over 40%. So he's efficient. And he's just clamps on the perimeter. Absolute clamps. One of the top 10 defenders in the NBA. Then I'm curious because the Nets are obviously tanking for Cooper Flag. So I'm curious if Dorian Finney-Smith Jr. or Cam Johnson, which I don't love the Cam Johnson contract, but guy can snipe the 3. But I'm curious if one of those two, the Nets have a fire sale and we go after one of them. And I would presume the target would probably be Dorian Finney-Smith Jr. because of his rebounding ability. That's really the big concern with the Sixers is the rebounding, which they did plug up a little bit with Andre Drummond. I mean, Andre Drummond averages 9 rebounds off the bench last year and 8 points, serious rim running, lob threat, and an underrated shot blocker. So rebounding is definitely a little improved, but I am intrigued to see if they really I'm really intrigued to see where this roster stands at the trade deadline, and if they're like, we're going to go even more all in and use our picks, just completely go over the second apron and, pay just a ridiculous amount of money to our top four,
I think where I stand on that. My dream guy, and I've been wanting to get him here for a really long time. And I don't know if it's realistic financially going to happen because they're probably going to have to go over the second apron unless they make like a nice big splash. And I don't know what that would mean, but I want Lowry Markkanen. I do. I really, really want Lowry. If we can find a way to have a lineup with Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Kelly Oubre, Lowry Markkanen, and Joel Embiid, that's a championship roster.
Yeah, we just don't have a lot to trade. Picks wise, our picks aren't good, and
you'd have to get a third party. You'd have to get a third team involved.
Yeah, and KJ Martin is not a great first trade asset because that's the guy based off of his contract. He's not even an $8 million a year player. He's making 2 years, $16 million. That's the guy that we're looking. I do like him. I don't like, but I don't know if he's $8 million a year.
No.
So I mean, that's our number one trade piece, which you're not going to get a lot out of that. So, but I think KJ will play a lot of minutes off the bench.
What about a Dembona?
Yeah, you can throw him in there, but I think they want to keep him around they need a backup for when Joel is sitting these games when Drummond's going to start. So
that's true. Yeah, that's if they don't get Dorian Finney-Smith. If they get Dorian Finney-Smith, a Dembona is going in the deal.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, so let me ask you this. Nick Nurse's expectations this year. I think that Nick Nurse needs to win Coach of the Year. But even if he doesn't win Coach of the Year, what are you looking for out of his – we'll start with offensive schemes.
I think Nick Nurse is a top 5 coach in the NBA. I think the guy's a genius. Yeah, I think the guy's a genius. Defensively, looked like in the preseason we were playing more zone, which I like because we have very quick reactionary defenders that can move around in a zone. And I just think he has the best defensive roster he's ever worked with, like perimeter defender wise. Like I think, I don't know, man. I think the not only did we get better on offense, but I think that the players we have flanking Joel on defense, like a lot of the time last year, like Joel's problem defensively has been guys are drawing him out to the perimeter on these switches. Like our defenders are not getting around these screens and staying home. So Joel has kind of had to been drawn up in the perimeter, and then a guy will just blow right by him, a guard and such. So having these perimeter defenders, they're going to be able to stay home and not get moved by these switches and get bodied on these switches. So Joel will be able to stay in that rim protection area. So I think his block numbers are potentially going to go up. And, I think the defense is going to be a top 7 defense. And as far as offensively, I mean, the way he just has these guys cutting and the off-ball movement and setting off-ball screens for each other, and just the play calls and everything he draws up. The guy's just a mastermind. He's an absolute psychopath in a great way, and it's just such a refreshing feeling from just watching Joel just do everything with Doc Rivers and Brett Brown.
Yes,
and he really puts his players in the best position to succeed, and has turned Joel into a tremendous passer with how he has these guys moving off the ball.
I agree with that. I also, and I forgot to bring this up, you know what I really liked about Nick Nurse? I liked how he was able to break down Eric Spoelstra's zone. And the one thing I miss is Nick Batum, because he exposed that zone last year. However, bringing in Caleb Martin was a really nice piece because he knows how to break a zone too, because that was his head coach and he knows how his head coach runs. And I don't think that we talked a lot about I don't think a lot of people are talking about that, but that's really big because we could not find ways to beat a goddamn zone for years and years and years with Ben Simmons, with Brett Brown, with Doc Rivers, with Tobias Harris. None of those guys could ever break a zone. And that was always really frustrating. So all that they would do was they would try to find ways to take the ball out of Joel's hands, and they would build this wall of a zone, and they could not get through it. And Nick Batum was able to break that down. And Nick Nurse, I thought, found ways to break that down last year. But Caleb Martin, bringing him in, that is sort of an underrated move from that perspective because he can destroy zones. And so can Oubre as well.
Yeah, great point, man.
So I wanted to just bring that up. But in regards to Nick Nurse, and then we'll continue this tomorrow. In regards to Nick Nurse and in regards to the offensive schemes, I am curious to see when they do those backdoor cuts to the basket and they have those little tic-tac-toe passes. I think that we're going to run more of those this year, but I also think that with the way that Tyrese Maxey now is probably going to be utilized as the number one option, I do expect that. I don't think Embiid throughout the regular season is always going to be looked upon as the number one option. I think that they're going to try to make Tyrese Maxey into more so of a facilitator. And I do believe that his natural position is the shooting guard. But if they can sort of unlock more out of Tyrese Maxey, I'm curious to see what types of plays that they're going to draw up for him just as a facilitator and as a conductor of the offense, because I think that that's going to unlock even more from this offense. And that to me, honestly, that to me is what actually could make them a championship team. It's not just running the ball through Joel. It's making Tyrese Maxey the number one option. And if he can be a really good facilitator this year, that could really, and I'm not even joking, that could help them win the chip.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's so crazy that we're saying that because 3 years ago, we'd be like, wow, like that would never happen. It has to go through Joel Embiid. I don't think that that's the case anymore. I really don't.
Yeah, the
That's
usage
no
rate.
disrespect to Joel.
No, not at all. I mean, especially in the fourth quarter, Maxey's definitely could be the number one guy. But absolutely, the usage rate, I don't think it's going to be 75% Joel anymore. The usage rate is definitely going to be evenly distributed much more.
So we covered Nick Nurse, and we talked about some of these players' expectations, but we never got into the big man. What are your expectations for Joel Embiid this year? Because mine, it's simple. It's simple. Stay healthy and make sure that we're ready for the playoffs.
Well, I think the hope is that Joel stays healthy. I don't think you can expect that. As much as we pray and he some seasons he is able to get through and he'll still play 60 games, and then you got a season like last year and he plays 35 games. So my expectations for Joel, I actually wouldn't be shocked if his numbers dipped a little bit just because of the ball distribution we have now, and his usage rate is definitely go down. So I wouldn't be surprised if his numbers dip to 28, but I probably expect a 30 still a game. I probably still expect 30 because man averaged 35 last year. 30 isn't far-fetched. So, but I do think it's going to go down from 35 because he's not asked to do everything. And in terms of total points leaders, he's just not going to be up there because he's not going to play back-to-backs. He's not going to play against the Charlotte Pistons, the Detroit the Charlotte Hornets, the Detroit Pistons, excuse me. Yes. So he's not going to play against the dumpster fires of the league. So like you said, I do think Maxey's usage rate is going to go incredibly up and skyrocket, and Paul George is going to get a lot of touches too. And he's going to be, I think his rest times are going to be a little bit longer, and we may have some of those frustrations like we had with Doc Rivers a little bit, where Doc Rivers would keep Joel out at 8 minutes a time. I think there's a possibility that happens under Nick Nurse just because of the depth we now have. But I still expect Joel to average between 28 and 30, still be dominant. I honestly, I think he's going to post up a lot more because he's not going to have to dance on the perimeter as much because we have guys that can dance on the perimeter. Still, I'm absolutely fine with him taking any mid-range shot he wants because he is the best shooter from mid-range in the entire NBA.
I think he is too.
So, and I expect Joel to get to the line. That's just what he does. And I don't care what anybody, like the Ringer and ESPN, the ESPN had Joel Embiid ranked the 8th best player in the NBA. And the only reason they said that is, injuries. Okay, but Giannis was injured the entire playoffs last year, but he's ranked 3rd. Make it make sense. And the Ringer's whole gripe with Joel Embiid, why they rank him 5, 6, 7 in the NBA.
Bill Simmons.
Yeah, Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo, they're just dumb Boston, Massachusetts men that have no idea what they're talking about, and they're just angry Celtics fans. They don't watch a single Sixers game. Their whole thing is Joel Embiid is a foul baiter, and if you watch this, he's not playing real basketball. No, Joel doesn't. Knows how to draw fouls, but the hand is always in the cookie jar. The defenders are making it so easy for him to draw fouls that why would you not? Why would you not take free points in the line? I don't know what's wrong with foul baiting, and he's not doing it egregiously like Jalen Brunson is, where Jalen Brunson's jumping back into Kelly Oubre, which is not a foul. They banned that years ago with Trae Young. That's not what Joel is doing. Joel is actually getting fouled because he has to be double and triple teamed every time he's on the block, and that's the reality. It's not because he's foul baiting; it's because he's that good.
And he's just that dominant in size.
Yeah.
Not even just talking about height, but weight. So,
and defensively, I expect Joel's block numbers to go up because, like I said earlier, he's not going to have to be flushed out to the perimeter because the guys on our team can't switch. Now we have guys that can switch properly and roll off screens. Like, he's not going to have to be switched onto a guard. It's not going to happen as often.
This is another conversation for another day, but I am interested to see how in the playoffs, we know that last year, the pace is just different. I mean, that's how it's always been, but they're not going to always call the fouls. They're going to let the guys play. And I wonder how Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George's play are going to be impacted by that. I actually think that the Sixers for years, they were not really ready for that, if that makes any sort of sense. I don't want to say, maybe I shouldn't say that they weren't ready for that, but I feel like that they have a more structured team for that. Do you think that makes sense?
I do think it makes sense. And as far as the playoffs go, I think, personally for me, Joel Embiid knocked off the cobwebs last year against the Knicks. I now fully trust that he can deliver in the playoffs because to me, that Knicks defense was the hardest defense he's played in the playoffs since Toronto 2019. So he averaged 35 against them on one leg and one eye. If he can do that on one leg and one eye, I'm not worried about what he can do with the playoffs when he has a 9-time All-Star on his roster and Maxey is a top 25 player in the NBA. Let's just call it how it is. So I'm not worried about Joel crumbling in the playoffs anymore.
Let's not forget about our 4th All-Star, Nick Nurse.
Absolutely.
So, can't forget about that. And then in regards to let's go to the backup center guy. His name is Andre Drummond. He's not new to this. This is his second stint with the Philadelphia 76ers. I think he's obviously an incredible rebounder, and we were missing that last year in the playoffs specifically, and we also just could never nail the backup center, JC. Paul Reed was our backup center. Doc Rivers didn't want to go on a Paul Reed victory tour, and maybe he ended up being right about that. I don't know. I have no clue, but it did not work out last year with B-Ball Paul. We had Mike Scott at some points running the 5 early on in Joel Embiid's career, and him being the backup center. We after going through so many trials and errors, I'm really happy that Andre Drummond is back. Oh, and I forgot about Dwight Howard too, being one of those other guys.
Yeah. I think Andre Drummond is by far the best backup Joel has ever had in his career. The half of season he played for us, he was awesome. This is a guy that's been a 2-time All-Star. When he was with the Pistons, he was a very, very highly efficient, very good center, and that could score the rock. And now he still has post moves. He is an excellent on putbacks. He is an excellent lob threat, which I think I've observed in the preseason that Maxey can throw lobs now. Yeah. So having Joel off the floor, you can work that pick and roll game, and Maxey can throw lobs to Drummond. He's an awesome dunker, and he averaged 9 rebounds off the bench last year and 8 points. He's still delivering. That's all I need from a backup center is 8 points a game, 10 rebounds. That's all I need. Yeah. And even 10 rebounds is a lot. This is a guy that can go for 20 rebounds in the game, even coming off the bench. So he's by far the best backup center Joel has ever had in his career. Paul Reed, I love Paul Reed. He was a klutz. He didn't have IQ. This guy has post moves. He has IQ. He even is a decent passer, and he actually is a very good rim protector as well. So you're really looking at the regular season where he has to make an impact, and all you're looking for in the playoffs is if he can give you literally 8 to 10 minutes. That's all you have to ask for. Is literally can you give Joel Embiid 3 minutes of rest in a quarter that in the playoffs? That's all you ask for. And Paul Reed couldn't do that because as soon as Joel goes off the court in the playoffs, every single year, the plus minus numbers are crazy. It's like minus 57, just like crazy numbers. Like it can't happen, and they had to make this move, and they got him on a very good deal.
To be fair, you expect there to be a drop-off because, look, Joel Embiid is just that good. And how many... if Nikola Jokic is not out there on the floor, it's hard to, replace him. It's hard to replace Joel Embiid. But now, the difference is that you don't necessarily, want it to be, minus 50. But, if we can make it, minus 10, that's an improvement. Or even if we get into the pluses, I think that's a big drastic improvement, too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another guy that I think could possibly play center, what I've observed in the preseason, is Gershon Yabusele. Yes. Because I think Dembona is going to play a lot in the G League with the Bluecoats. And I think there's a possibility that Yabusele, although his natural position is power forward, I think what I've observed from Nurse is he'll play a lot of the backup center when Drummond is out. And I like Yabusele, and I think that was a very good pickup after the Olympics. I mean, this man dunked on LeBron James in the final game, just yammed it on his head, complete poster. Yabusele, he averaged 14 a game in the Olympics for France on 52% from the field. When averaged 10 points on Real Madrid, shot 48 from 3. Granted, the line there is closer, I understand that, but he's improved his shooting numbers every single year in the EuroLeague. And he's a big body, and I think he really can help our rebounding. He's great at slashing. He's athletic and really can get up there on dunks, and he also can post up. So I think he'll get some minutes. Well, I don't know if it'll be at the 4 or the 5. I don't know if he'll play very early on, but I think there's a decent chance he could get solid minutes for us, maybe even over a KJ Martin.
Yeah, I think that he brings more athleticism to the table. I also really like what he can do in the open floor. I think that he could be a really, really good spark plug off the bench as well. Maybe, we have to wait and see how many minutes, he's going to play. I'm sure that when Joel Embiid's not playing, his minutes are going to go up during the regular season because that's just what tends to happen. Andre Drummond is probably going to get more minutes as the backup center, but then that's going to open up some more time for him. And I'm curious to see how he does during those minutes. Let's talk a little bit about Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry is old. He is old, man. He is now 38 years old. I don't expect him to be given the Sixers too many minutes, to start off the season. I think that he's going to be one of those guys, where as the season progresses, he'll get more minutes. Are you surprised that the Sixers brought back Kyle Lowry and decided to go in another direction with Campaign?
I liked Campaign, and at this point, I think Lowry is the better facilitator and gets us into our offense better, and I think Campaign is the better scorer. And I think Lowry can still shoot the 3 at a pretty efficient rate, but he's not the scorer he was in Toronto. He's just not.
No.
His scoring fell off in Miami. And
Sure.
I think the most you can expect for him is 5 a game. And I think he's still a solid defender, but I think the reason they brought him back is after trading Pat Bev, they needed a locker room presence, a guy that's a leader and has won a championship and has that rapport with Nick Nurse and knows his offense and his defense like the back of his hand. And I think that's why they brought him back. But I'm not confident that he'll get a lot of minutes, and I think there's a possibility Reggie Jackson can take some of his minutes, maybe a good portion of his minutes, because Reggie Jackson also has championship experience. He was crucial off the bench 2 years ago when the Nuggets won the championship. And at this point in his career, he's just a better scorer, has a better handle. Lowry is still probably a better facilitator, but Reggie Jackson has got a smooth handle, and I think he can get to the cup, and he's got a nice step back three. So I think that's interesting what happens with the backup point guard. He hasn't looked great in preseason, but he does also have championship experience. It's a little younger than Kyle, so I am interested what happens at that backup spot. But I don't. You mentioned earlier that Lowry, there's a possibility Lowry could start. I don't think that's in the cards. I think Maxey is the sole point guard of this team. Whether we want him to play the 2 or not, I think that's what it is, and I think he's perfectly capable of playing the 1. So
it's interesting. It's very interesting to me. The battle for the last roster spot. Okay, I'm looking at guys like Justin Edwards. I'm looking at Lester Quinones. I'm looking at Gershon, of course. And David Jones, another name that I see that's on here. How do you think that the battle for that final roster spot is going? And who do you think is going to make that final spot?
I think Justin Edwards will be assigned to the Blue Coats for sure. I think the last roster spot, I think Yabusele definitely makes the team, but the last roster spot probably goes to Lester Quinones. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
He was with the Warriors last year, averaged around 6 a game. He had, I think, 2 breakout games where he had, 20 or 23, something like that. Is a decent shooter, can get to the cup. He's not going to play at all for us, but it just to fill in a roster spot, I think that's the last guy who gets it.
Justin Edwards. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Well, Edwards, I think, is going to the Blue Coats. I think Lester.
Lester, I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lester is staying on the
Lester
Sixers.
Quinones. Yeah. Dude, it's funny. He and David Jones, I forgot, went to Memphis. They both played together in Memphis, which I think is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? That's really
cool. Man. So kind of to wrap up the Sixers talk, I guess a good way to end it. What grade would you give Daryl Morey for this offseason, and do you think there are more moves in store?
I know that the Phillies season just ended, but Bryson Stott's walk-up song "Ayo A-OK" is in my head, so I'm gonna give him an A for A-OK. So I'm gonna go with an A, and the reason why I'm gonna give him an A is because yes, he got Paul George, which was the biggest fish in the sea. And sure, you can say to yourself, oh, well, it's really easy to get an A there. I was at a B when they got Paul George. But the reason why I give him an A is because he also was able to utilize all the flexibility that he had to get Andre Drummond, to get Reggie Jackson, which wasn't a bad pick at all. I think that any way you look at it, it's a win-win because he's on a $2 million deal, and it's not really like a huge contract. He got Kelly Oubre back, which was really big for me. Okay, he brought back Kyle Lowry. I would have much rather went into the direction of campaign personally, but Kyle Lowry's a veteran. He knows Nick Nurse, and he's a competitive dog, and we can always use those types of players. He's very scrappy, fighting for loose balls, diving into Matthew Cord, during – if you remember that, jumping into the scoring stable, and bringing back Caleb Martin. All those things are really important. And he also brought back KJ Martin too. So I think that now for so many years, we've complained that this team lacks athleticism and lacks ballers. I think we finally have that. I think we finally have guys that can actually just flat out ball, take it right to the cup, play really, really good on defense, use really good off-ball moves, like guys that also fit Nick Nurse's scheme. So just from that sort of perspective and drafting, as weird as this sounds, I wanted Dalton Connect. I did. I thought Dalton would fit the system better.
Put up 35 last night, the preseason.
Yeah, I know.
20 straight in the fourth. That's crazy.
I know, but it's no disrespect to Jared McCain because McCain really has been really solid too. So, yeah, I give him an A because I think that he made the roster better, and this was actually his first full season. Let's not forget where he actually had a roster built.
Yeah.
How about you?
Listen, I couldn't agree more. I also agree A. I think the only way you give him an A+ is if he gets a Kevin Durant, something like that. But the A, I agree the same thing. If it was just Paul George, I love Paul George, but it probably would have just been a B. But the fact that he rounded out the roster, got depth, there's still apparently a little bit of cap space to spare, not much, but he, was able to finagle the cap space, used most of it. This was the most cap space we've ever had. And he used it all efficiently, was able to get guys on really good deals. Like I said, Caleb Martin took a very substantial pay cut. Oubre, we both agree that he's probably worth more. Was I a little disappointed that I know Buddy Hield wasn't good for us, and I know DeAnthony Melton has a history of injuries. I was a little disappointed that they weren't brought back only because I think they are perfect fits for this team in terms of spacing and with Melton 3 and D. But I also understand that their contracts are probably a little bit more than what they're worth at this point. So I'm okay. I understand why they were let go. And I think the guys that we brought are on really good deals. And this roster, we finally can say Joel Embiid has depth around him. He finally has a bench. And he finally has starters that aren't, Furkan Korkmaz. Like, he doesn't have to deal with that anymore. Like, Caleb Martin is a starter in this league. So we finally have guys that, can shoot the three, can play really solid defense, and we have dogs. We have dogs now. Like, we don't have to rely on PJ Tucker being our only dog, 38-year-old PJ Tucker being our dog. We have dogs, and they're young dogs. They're scrappy dogs. They're little puppies, but they're fucking dogs. You know what I mean? So that's what we've got here, and they're young pups, but they're dogs. And we've got, like you said, we've got guys that can ball, that are scrappy and fully fit the Philly dog mentality of just scrap and claw for everything you have, dive on the ground for loose balls. Like, I want to see guys jumping into the stands for a loose ball. That's what I want to see, and we have those guys now. And guys that can really stretch the floor and make it much easier on Joel as a passer. So I also give Daryl Morey an A.
It's interesting because I think that this is also, for a while we've had older guys. We had James Harden. We had PJ Tucker. We've had Dwight Howard. We've had, like, just guys that are sort of, like, out of their prime type of a thing. And I feel like with the way that this roster is now, sure, Andre Drummond's 31 years old. Sure, Eric Gordon's 35. And sure, Kyle Lowry's 38. But Caleb Martin's 29. You look at other guys that are even on this team now too. I feel like that they got younger.
Maxey and McCain are our age, bro. Like,
I know.
We have a perfect mix of veterans, and we have a perfect mix of young developmental talent.
It's a very, very good mix.
Granted, we're not as young as the Houston Rockets, but I want a mix of veterans and young guys. I want a mix of guys we can look at in the future, like Maxey and McCain, but I also want guys that I know have been there and have playoff experience, and that's what we have.
Yep. And Gershon's 28 years old.
Wow.
It's actually really, really cool. KJ's 23. We know that Maxey's 23. McCain's 20. Oubre's 28. Like, we have and Ricky Council's 23. So it's a very nice, young, but also like a good. It's it's a very nice balanced mix of guys. I can't speak today. I don't know why. Maybe I woke up on the wrong side of bed. I had a really weird. I had a really weird sleep last night. I don't know. But anyhow, yeah, I really, really like this team. And overall, I think Daryl Morey did a really, really good job. I can't really be nitpicky about him. Let's also put this into perspective too. Tobias Harris and Paul Reed aren't back, and that is also a plus as well. So
Yeah, well, it's a fireable offense if he brought them back.
yeah, well, you wouldn't trade him for a crumble cookie, right?
Yes. So I think we discussed this earlier. We were talking about our record predictions for the Sixers. I think you had them at 53 wins.
53 wins.
I had them at 50 wins, and I said my expectation is at least the Eastern Conference Finals. But do you think this team can beat Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals and go to the finals if everyone's healthy? That's the big question.
What seed are they? That's the other question.
But I expect them to probably come out as the 3 seed.
Okay.
But still, at that point, you still don't know who they're going to play, what the other seeds are going to shake out.
If they are the 3 seed and everybody's healthy, I expect the Celtics, unless the roster changes and unless I see Tyrese Maxey take a big step, I think that realistically, without watching any games right now, I think it's safe to say that the Sixers could lose to Boston in 6. However, I think that that's a good starting stick. As weird as that sounds, I think that that's like a really good way to start off the regular season with that type of mindset, because that can obviously change. It all is dependent on, yes, the big guy needs to stay healthy. Yes, Paul George has to stay healthy. But it really, and I mentioned this before, it all also comes to Tyrese Maxey now as well. If he's the number 1 scoring option and he can continue to finish through contact, and I think he's also going to have more of a whistle this year, even in the playoffs. I do. I think that he's starting to earn that respect now. If he can just take over games the way that he can and the way that I know that he can, I think that they have a chance. I think that that's their only chance of getting past Boston.
I think that's a fair assessment. I still cannot confidently say we will beat Boston.
Yes.
But, I mean, all we can go off of right now is what we have on paper. And we really don't know what.
Shot.
Yes,
we have a shot.
Absolutely. But we have to see the scheme, and we have to see how the ball movement is and how the distribution. The reality is we have 3 all-star players on our roster. There have been teams that the Brooklyn Nets with KD, Harden, and Kyrie were fantastic, the games they played, but they didn't stay healthy. But there's other big threes, right? Like the Suns are trying out Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, and it just didn't work last year. So you never really know. But I think the skill sets of this big 3, they all just mesh so perfectly that it's really hard for me to see this team disappointing our expectations. But right now, I think the only reasonable expectation can be at least Eastern Conference Finals. Then I can worry about finals once we get there, but that's where my starting point has to be, is first let's get out of the second round.
I think that the Sixers are better than almost every single Western Conference team. The only team that I'll put them up like on a little, I'll put a little question mark against is the Denver Nuggets. That's the only team I know that the Nuggets didn't make it out last year. But I think we're a top 5 team. I do. I think that we're easily a top 5 team, but Boston is just the best.
Fair.
So I hate to say it. I hate being that guy, but it's the truth. You know, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, even though Jaylen Brown is so overpaid, gotta tell you.
I mean, they're both making $60 million a year. I do think they're both elite players. For both of them, it's an extreme contract, but that's just where the market is. I want to get into this in the second, but look at the NFL market. Trevor Lawrence is getting paid 55 or 51 million a year. Deshaun Watson is getting paid 50 million a year. It's the same thing in the NBA, but these players like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they are proven, and reality is they did just win the championship. So that's all you can ask. That's all you can ask for. So in a way, they did earn their contracts. So
it's true. Could have had Jaylen Brown. Could have had Jason Tatum.
There's been a lot of
I'm very salty.
Of course, but
I'm very salty.
I'm happy with this team right now. And the reality is the guy that made me fall in love with basketball, Paul George, is on my team, and I couldn't be happier. So I think this was a great Sixers talk. And I do have some questions I want to ask you. Do a little Ask JJ segment.
Away.
That's okay. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to start with, we both love the Eagles.
Okay.
And I think one of the happiest days of both of our lives, maybe the happiest day, is when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And we will always have a soft spot in our hearts for Doug Pederson, and the city will always love him, and he has a statue in front of the stadium. He's a legend here, and he always will be. He will never have to pay for a beer or a meal in this city. But right now with the Jaguars, things are pretty rough. They are, I believe, 1-5, and there's a lot of holes. They have an overpaid QB, like I just said, Trevor Lawrence, making $51 million a year, and he is constantly overthrowing guys down the field. They have no number one receiver. Christian Kirk can't be your number one receiver. They have a terrible defense. Their defense, they're allowing 30 points per game and is 31st in the NFL. And they're 22nd in points per game on offense, averaging 19. They whiffed their number one draft pick on Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson, which I couldn't understand at the time at all. Aiden Hutchinson is a top 5 defensive lineman in the league right now. So do you expect Doug Pederson to be fired pretty soon? And do you think this is the end for him?
I don't think it's been working out. I could see Jacksonville moving on from him, but not a lot of people fire their head coaches during the middle of the season. I don't know why. I mean, actually, I'm sorry. I do know why, because in football, it is so hard to run, to finish, or to have. If you bring in somebody new, I noticed that with Matt Patricia last year, it was really hard. And I'm not excusing Matt Patricia, because I feel like that he's just not a good defensive coordinator at all. But to sort of defend him a little bit, when Sean Desai gets demoted and the playbook changes and everything, you got to study that new playbook. And so how can you study that when there's only like a couple of weeks left during the season? It is so hard to do that. And I can kind of understand why they don't go in that direction, because the playbooks are different, and it takes a long time to actually look at a playbook. It really does. Like, you have to memorize all the different types of plays, and it's like reading a Bible. But everybody has their own philosophies and that type of a thing. So would it shock me if they fired Doug Pederson? No. Do I see it being a thing? Maybe.
And that isn't a reunion you would entertain if the Eagles fire Sirianni, correct?
No.
Because I've heard Eagles fans. We were with a friend this weekend, and I believe he said that he wouldn't mind bringing Doug Pederson back.
Doug back.
So I'm not either. I think his time is done. I think his offense worked 6 years ago. I don't know if it works in the modern NFL today. And I will always be grateful for Doug Pederson. But I think especially if they lose to the Patriots this weekend, I think his time as an NFL head coach, period, is done. He looks lifeless out there. He looks miserable. And honestly, I don't think Doug Pederson would mind just living in Florida golfing for the rest of his life.
Sirianni to Jacksonville?
We'll see.
Even Siri just started talking. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Next question I wanted to ask you, transitioning over to basketball. Shams Charania reported, Shams Charania now working for ESPN. Los Angeles Clippers star Kawhi Leonard
is that. It
is weird to say that. But good for him. I love Shams. Yes. I always watch his appearances on Pat McAfee's show, and I think Pat really vouched for him to get this
And
job.
also, congratulations to Woj, too.
Yes, what he's doing for St. Bonaventure is awesome.
Yes.
But Shams tweeted, Los Angeles Clippers star Kawhi Leonard is expected to be sidelined for an indefinite period of time to start the NBA season as he rehabilitates the inflammation in his right knee. Do you think this is the end for Kawhi Leonard? Because these knee injuries just seem to happen every year, especially when playoffs come around, and I don't think he's been healthy for the playoffs in 3 years. And of course, the only time he has been healthy for a significant period of time is the year that he made that buzzer beater against the Sixers. Of course, we have to deal with that. The only year he's healthy is this the end for Kawhi Leonard? Does he need to retire? And do you think the Clippers can stay? Because I anticipate the way this is going, Kawhi is going to be out at least the first 10 games of the season, at least. Do you think James Harden can keep them afloat through those 10 games? It doesn't seem like you do. I think there's a possibility he could in the regular season. And do you think Kawhi needs to retire?
I didn't expect that to come out. That's why I was laughing.
Yeah.
Can James Harden keep them afloat for the first 10 games? I mean, I guess anything is possible. You know, it's the honeymoon start of the season. The strip club stories and everything with James Harden. Maybe No, I don't think James Harden can keep them afloat to start off the season. And if he does, I guess kudos to him. I guess I sort of have to give him flowers for that. But yeah, I feel like, as sad as it is to say, I've always liked Kawhi as a player. I've always thought that he was just like one of those guys that was sort of like Stephon Gilmore, you know, like always quiet, but like, they call him the Claw. Like, he's just such an incredible talent, an incredible defensive player as well. It's a shame that, you know, he's never won an MVP. Like, I wanted to put that out there. He's never won an MVP. And yet, I think that at this stage, go for it.
I was just going to say he's been close. He's been in the top 5 of votes a couple times, but he hasn't won. You're correct.
I know. It's crazy. Just like Klay Thompson's only made one first team all defense. But anyhow, to stay on track and to stay on topic, I think that this is getting close to the end for Kawhi because he's getting older and these injuries, as you get older, man, it is really, really hard to battle through all these.
Especially in
It's not. Exactly. Yep. He's not the same defensive player that he once was. And I think that age is starting to catch up with him. And I feel bad for saying this because I really do like Kawhi. I really think that he's an incredible competitor. And I always liked his attitude. Always thought that he was a really, really good scorer. And I've wanted him to have success. I actually wanted him to come over to the Sixers and have them, you know, come over for Ben Simmons. But that wasn't going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, the Clippers are in a tricky spot because I think they were forced to resign 2 of Kawhi, Harden, or Paul George because they're building this new Intuit Dome. You can't build a new stadium and not be competitive the first minute you step in there. And so from a standpoint, I don't think these are players you really can. It's harder to build around them because of their age and their injury history, but they had to do it in order to stay competitive. I think they should have considered paying Paul George because Paul George's injury history is not great either. I understand that, but I think you can bank on his health a little bit more than Kawhi. And I think Harden for 10 games, I still believe Harden is probably a top 35 player. I know you think that's
funny. That's funny. No, because I think you're right, but it's just now we're talking about top 35.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA is deep. That's still a good place to be. I think Harden is besides Luka Doncic and Jokic, is the best passer in the league still. And
put LeBron James up there, but okay.
Yeah, possibly. I think we haven't seen Harden had a system built around him in the past couple of years, where I think the way the Clippers are designed now, they designed it very similar to how the Houston Rockets were designed, just 3 and D guys guys that are athletic on both ends but can knock down the three, and Harden can just dance, dribble, ISO. And if he's not able to find a lane for a floater or doesn't have the step back three, he's able to kick it out. And I like the Derrick Jones Jr. pickup. I think they got him on a decent contract. I still think they have a very talented roster. I've always really liked Norman Powell. I wanted the Sixers to get Terrence Mann out of that trade last year for Harden. I think he's a talented young player. And they got Batum, and I think Batum has such a high IQ and is obviously a sniper from the corner. So I think they have a decent roster, and I think Harden can keep them somewhat afloat, maybe win them half the games while Kawhi's out. But I probably, if Kawhi's going to be out a significant period of time, I probably look at this team more like a playoff team. A play-in team. A play-in team where they're going to be fighting for that 7 or 8 seed. Especially if this is an injury for a significant period of time. And honestly, it benefits the Sixers because we have their picks in 2028 and 2029, which is far ways away, but that does help.
It becomes more of an asset.
Yeah, it does.
It does. So I wanted to ask, what happened? So is Rocco still in the league? Did he ever get signed?
I don't know what happened with Rocco. I think we were. I think he's a free agent still. I think we were considering bringing him back, but I think there's been an issue with, I don't know if it was his back, but there's been an injury issue, and he didn't play most of this year. And we have more talented guys on this roster. We just do. I like Rocco, and I think he's a sniper, but I don't think they're bringing him back, or Marcus Morris at this point either. So
no.
Two more questions I wanted to ask you. So I believe that Eagles are your number one, but I do know that for a long period of time you had a very soft spot and loved the Patriots and were very passionate about the Patriots and the dynasty and everything they gave you. What do you think about Drake May's first start this weekend? Personally, I thought that first touchdown he threw to Kayshon Boutte was elite ball placement. It was an absolute dime down the field. He displayed some rushing ability, which he has displayed in college, that he can move with his legs and get out of the pocket and scramble for a first down. His accuracy is definitely an issue. He made some crazy overthrows as well, high and behind. What do you think about Drake May's first start, and what do you expect for him the rest of the season? Because personally, for me, it's a little bit of a concern how awful this Patriots offensive line is, and I wasn't expecting him to be thrust in this early, especially a defense as good as the Texans, which I think he threw 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, but I think against a defense that good, and he threw for over 200 yards. He's the only quarterback to throw for over 200 yards against the Texans this year. I think that's a pretty solid start against a really good defense. What say you, and what are your expectations for Drake Maye for the rest of his rookie season?
Well, I think that he definitely has talent. I do. His IQ definitely needs to be better. He had a 31.5 QBR, which really isn't so good. But you look at his overall rating, it was at an 88.3, which honestly is okay. But he got sacked 4 times. And again, part of that is just like you said, part of the offensive line problems because the Patriots don't really have a lot of protection. The accuracy, you're also right about that. But I think that he needs a really good offensive-minded head coach or a good offensive play caller to put him in a position to succeed. But there's definitely talent. The deep ball is something that has to be worked on for him, but he's good at navigating through the pocket, also understanding when he does have to step up. It's not really too fast as a rusher or if he has to try to go up the middle and has to run with the ball and try to use his legs. I think that's something that he could sort of improve on, but overall, I was actually really impressed with what he was able to do against that Texans team because, just like you said, not a lot of teams score on them. So I do think that there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. But overall, I did feel pretty good about what he was able to do, but there's a lot of things that he has to improve on, and that just comes with reps and times of snaps and all that type of stuff. But overall, I'd say he looks pretty good out there.
Yeah, I just worry about him getting hurt with this offensive line.
Yeah,
I think we need to wait a little bit.
But let's also not forget either that he doesn't really have a lot of targets as well.
The expectations are there's really no expectations. The Patriots have no weapons whatsoever.
Yes.
They have not surrounded him with pieces.
No.
The expectations are not high this year. The Patriots are going to have a top 3 draft pick and are very well in position to draft Travis Hunter from Colorado, which would be perfect for them.
Yeah.
That defensive backfield, Christian Gonzalez and Travis Hunter, no one's scoring on that.
No.
And I don't know if he'll play wide receiver as well in the NFL, but that would be pretty miraculous if he played cornerback and wide receiver, because he's also very talented as a wide receiver, Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to work out and how scouts are going to continue to look at him, because he's good at both, you know? He's really, really good at both. And he might be like the next Shohei Ohtani. Seriously.
That's an interesting take. My final question for you, like I just mentioned, you also are a Patriots fan. You know, you always used to be, but you always will be grateful to Tom Brady for what he did for that organization. Tom Brady now is the number 1 broadcaster for Fox, and as of a couple of days ago, his pitch to become a minority of the Las Vegas Raiders was approved. He now has a 5% stake with a $220 million investment. But it is a conflict of interest because he also is the number 1 broadcaster in Fox. And so as an aspiring broadcaster yourself, I wanted to know your thoughts about this. I was watching the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and former Patriots GM Michael Lombardi came on and basically explained the guidelines as a minority owner and a broadcaster at the first time, because this is the first time an NFL player has ever become that is a broadcaster as well, has become a minority owner. So these rules were specifically put in place for Tom Brady. He's not permitted to be in another team's facility. He's not permitted to witness practice. He's not permitted to attend broadcast production meetings, either in person or virtually. Prohibited from publicly criticizing game officials and other clubs. Subject to the NFL's gambling policy and subject to the NFL's anti-tampering policy. So I personally believe Fox is doing a mega disservice to the fans by taking Greg Olsen off of the number 1 broadcast. They knew this was going to happen. I think Greg Olsen is a fantastic broadcaster. He was an excellent player as well and has an immense IQ and eye for the game. With all these restrictions, how can Brady accurately call a game to his best ability when he can't even watch the team's practice and he can't comment on officials? How can he accurately call a game and do a service to the fans?
Hey, Tom. Okay, I'm just gonna put this out there. Okay, if you ever want to come over to play-by-play with JJ Productions, I mean, I'm just saying the door is always open. I'm not trying to tamper or anything, but I'm just saying that we're always here, we're always open, so you can come over here at any time.
Instead of getting a 5% stake of the Raiders, you can get a 15% stake in play-by-play with JJ. That'll get you a grand lot.
I don't go to shoot around. I don't go to batting practice because that's like not in my contract. Like that's not in person. I just wanted to put that out there. But I bring that up, all jokes aside, because you were 1,000% hitting the nail on the head. How in the world is he going to be able to get access to all of this really good quality info by not going to these meetings in the locker room and by being with all these restrictions? Fox did really screw themselves up. And honestly, welcome to media, where owners just throw that money. That's all it is, man. It's like they want to get a deal done. There's no audition process. There's no they just think that they can just put a mic on you and everything's fine and everything's gonna work out. But Not saying that Tom doesn't do a good job, because I think that Tom can do a good job as a broadcaster. And I think that, again, he needs reps. It's different. It is so different talking the game than it is watching the game. That's the truth. And part of what makes a broadcaster succeed, and it's not even, I don't even have it to my advantage now, on YouTube. Part of the things that I miss are going to batting practice, going to shoot around, right? Going to open practices and those types of things, because that's where you get your information. That's where you get like your quotes. That's where you get like all of like your important pieces of facts from the head coaches and all that sort of stuff, and from teammates. But I think that the way that Fox has handled it, they saw this coming, and yeah, they shot themselves in the foot by getting rid of Greg Olsen too.
I mean, saying he can't publicly criticize other clubs, what does that mean? He can't negatively comment on another NFL team? I mean, well, what does that good do for you?
Yeah, there's no fine line for that.
Yeah, and then not permitted to be in another team's facility. So you're telling me if he's calling the Chiefs game, he can't interview Patrick Mahomes? So what are we doing here? And they knew that this was a possibility. This has been in the works for years, that Brady has wanted to be a minority owner in the team. Originally it was the Dolphins, and now it's the Raiders. And Fox has known this for years, and they had Greg Olsen call a Super Bowl, and he was fantastic in that Super Bowl, and still decided to go with Brady. And I understand that many people view him as the greatest of all time, and I understand he has probably the most IQ of a player we've ever seen. But if they knew this was coming, I don't know why they would
They're
let
putting
this
him in a
happen.
position to fail.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. They're not helping out with the situation. And it's a shame because, again, the one thing I give Shannon Sharpe a lot of credit for is Shannon Sharpe, yes, he created his own platform, and heck yeah, he was a great football player, a fantastic football player, one of the best tight ends to ever play in the NFL, if not the best. But again, there's a difference between talking about the game and playing the game, and Shannon does a really good job at breaking things down. John Madden did an incredible job at breaking things down and making people understand what was going on, even to like a kid. And I don't know if Tom can do that. I think that Tom can, but again, you're putting him in a really, really hard position by him not being able to evolve. And that's a shame. That's really a shame.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. I think that's going to wrap things up. But, dude, appreciate you for coming on here. Always a pleasure. And we'll keep talking throughout the season, throughout the Sixers season.
Potting for 2 days in a row, man. That's awesome. And listen,
Cool.
the fans of Play-by-Play with JJ, me and JJ and our boy Matt, we're going to be in the building. We're going to be at Wells Fargo on Wednesday night, opening night, cheering on our squad. So maybe we'll do a little vlog action. Maybe we'll show you a little bit about what's going on. But we're going to be there and will our team to victory and boo the heck out of Doc Rivers on Wednesday night.
We'll be clapping our hands. That's what we'll be doing. All right.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, man. Guys, that's gonna wrap things up here. My name is Jason Joseph. This is my boy Josh. And we will catch you all on the next one. Peace.
Yes, sir.